The notification sound pinged for the fourth time in 30 seconds. Jasmine Washington's eyes flickered from the road to her phone screen resting in the cup holder. Her best friend Tanya was blowing up the group chat with photos from her vacation in Barbados. The afternoon sun gleamed off the downtown Chicago streets as Jasmine reached for her phone, just for a second, just to see what was so urgent. That second cost $3 million. The sickening crunch of metal against metal seemed to happen in slow motion. Jasmine's 7-year-old Honda Civic, worth maybe $4,000 on a good day, had rear-ended something. But not just something. As she slammed on the brakes, her hands trembling on the steering wheel, she saw what she'd hit. A pristine, midnight blue Bugatti Chiron, parked at the curb outside the Waldorf Astoria. Oh God, no. Please no, Jasmine whispered, her voice cracking as she stared at the damage. The entire rear bumper of the Bugatti was crushed, the custom taillights shattered into 1,000 pieces of red crystal across the pavement. Her Honda's front end was completely demolished, steam hissing from the broken radiator. Within seconds, a crowd began to gather. A valet from the Waldorf jogged over, his face pale. A woman in a Chanel suit gasped audibly. 2 teenagers immediately started filming on their phones. "Miss, are you okay?" the valet asked, but his eyes weren't on Jasmine. They were on the Bugatti, looking at it the way someone might look at a wounded animal. Jasmine stumbled out of her car, her legs barely holding her. She was 26 years old, wearing her Target work uniform, khakis and a red polo shirt with her name tag still pinned to it. She'd just finished her shift as a stock associate, making $13.50 an hour. Her student loans from community college totaled $42,000. Her checking account currently held $837, and she had just destroyed a car worth more than she would make in her entire lifetime. "Whose car is this?" Jasmine asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I need to tell them. That would be mine." The voice came from behind her, smooth and deep, with an edge of controlled anger. Jasmine turned to see a man striding out of the Waldorf Astoria's entrance. He was tall, probably 6'3", wearing a charcoal gray suit that looked like it cost more than her monthly rent. His skin was a deep brown, his hair cut in a precise fade, and his dark eyes were currently fixed on his destroyed Bugatti with an expression that made Jasmine's stomach drop. This was Marcus Chen Williams, though Jasmine didn't know it yet. She didn't know that he was the 34-year-old founder and CEO of Nexus Capital, a private equity firm that had just closed a deal worth $900 million. She didn't know that the Bugatti Chiron was one of only 500 ever made, custom ordered with specifications that had taken 18 months to build. She didn't know that his net worth was estimated at $1.2 billion. All she knew was that she had destroyed this man's car, and she was going to lose everything. "Sir, I am so sorry," Jasmine stammered, walking toward him on shaking legs. I looked at my phone for 1 second, and I didn't see that you were parked, and Marcus held up one hand, silencing her. He walked past her, circling the Bugatti slowly, his jaw clenched so tight a muscle twitched in his cheek. He knelt down, examining the damage with the careful attention of a surgeon examining a patient. "The entire rear fascia will need to be replaced," he said quietly, more to himself than to anyone else. "The exhaust system is damaged. The rear suspension could be compromised. The taillights alone are $12,000 each, custom made in France." Jasmine felt tears burning in her eyes. "I have insurance." "My insurance will." "Your insurance?" Marcus stood up, fixing her with a look that made her feel about 2 inches tall. "What's your coverage limit? 50,000? 100,000? I think it's 50,000, Jasmine whispered. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The repairs on this car will cost somewhere between $400,000 and $600,000. That's if the frame isn't damaged. If the frame is compromised, the car is totaled, and you owe me $3 million. The number hit Jasmine like a physical blow. $3 million. She couldn't even conceptualize that much money. She did quick math in her head. Working 40 hours a week at $13.50 an hour, that was about $28,000 a year before taxes. To pay back $3 million, she would have to work for over 100 years. "I don't have that kind of money," she said, and the tears finally spilled over. I can't." Clearly, Marcus gestured to her Honda, to her Target uniform. His voice wasn't cruel exactly, but it was cold, matter-of-fact. "What do you do for a living, Miss?" "Washington. Jasmine Washington. I work at Target. I'm a stock associate." "How much do you make?" The question felt invasive, humiliating, but Jasmine answered anyway. What choice did she have? $13.50 an hour. About $28,000 a year. Marcus nodded slowly, pulling out his phone. "And you live where?" "Southside, Austin neighborhood. I share a 2-bedroom apartment with my cousin. My half of the rent is $650 a month." He typed something into his phone, his fingers moving quickly across the screen. The crowd around them had grown larger. Jasmine could hear people whispering, could feel their eyes on her like weights. Someone was definitely still filming. This would probably be on social media within the hour. "Broke girl destroys billionaire's Bugatti." "Here's your situation, Miss Washington," Marcus said, putting his phone away. "My insurance will cover some of this, but I have a $100,000 deductible. Your insurance will pay their maximum of $50,000. That leaves you personally liable for, conservatively, $300,000 to $500,000. More if the car is totaled." Jasmine's knees went weak. She put her hand on her destroyed Honda to steady herself. "I'll never be able to pay that back. Never. You'll have to sue me, and I'll have to declare bankruptcy and—" "Bankruptcy won't discharge this debt," Marcus interrupted. "Not entirely. And even if it did, it would destroy your credit for 7 to 10 years. You'd never get approved for an apartment lease, a car loan, a credit card. You'd be financially ruined before you turned 30. He said it so calmly, like he was discussing the weather. Jasmine felt her throat closing up. This couldn't be happening. This morning she'd woken up stressed about her student loans and whether she could afford to go to her friend's wedding next month. Now she was in debt for an amount that would crush her for the rest of her life. "However," Marcus continued, his tone shifting slightly, "I'm not interested in financially destroying a young woman who made a stupid mistake. I'm a businessman, Miss Washington. I believe in solutions that benefit both parties." Jasmine looked up at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm willing to offer you an alternative to bankruptcy and legal proceedings." Marcus gestured to the Waldorf behind him. "I need a personal assistant. My previous assistant quit 3 weeks ago to take a position at Google. I've been conducting interviews, but the caliber of candidates has been disappointing. Most people can't handle the hours, the demands, the attention to detail I require." "I don't understand," Jasmine said. "You want me to work for you? But I don't have any experience as an assistant. I've never—" "You'll learn." Marcus pulled a business card from his wallet and handed it to her. The cardstock was heavy, expensive, with raised lettering. Marcus Chen Williams, founder and CEO, Nexus Capital. Here's my proposal. You work as my personal assistant for 1 year. The position would normally pay $90,000 annually. However, in your case, the entire salary will go toward paying off your debt to me. You won't see a penny of it. Jasmine stared at the card, trying to process what he was saying. So I'd work for free? For a whole year? You'd work to pay off your debt, Marcus corrected. It's not the same thing. At the end of the year, you'll have paid down $90,000 of what you owe. The remaining balance, we can discuss payment arrangements. But it's better than declaring bankruptcy and having wage garnishment follow you for the next 20 years. A police car pulled up, lights flashing. An officer got out, looking at the scene with wide eyes. Marcus held up one hand to the officer. Give us a moment, please. He turned back to Jasmine. You need to make a decision right now, Miss Washington. Option 1. We let the police file their report, insurance companies get involved, lawyers get involved, and you spend the next decade digging yourself out of a financial hole that will affect every aspect of your life. Option 2. You accept my offer, work for 1 year, and we resolve this situation privately. But I can't afford to work for free, Jasmine protested. I have rent, student loans, food, my phone bill. The contract includes room and board, Marcus said. I have a penthouse in the Loop with a spare bedroom. You'll live there. Meals will be provided. Your transportation will be handled. I'll even cover your student loan minimum payments for the year. All your basic needs will be met. The only thing you won't have is disposable income. Jasmine's mind was racing. Live in a penthouse in downtown Chicago? Not have to pay rent or buy groceries? Her student loan payments were $325 a month. That would be taken care of? It sounded too good to be true, which meant there had to be a catch. What exactly would I be doing as your personal assistant? She asked carefully. Managing my schedule, booking travel, handling correspondence, preparing documents, attending meetings with me, running errands, coordinating with my other staff. The hours would be long. I typically start my day at 6 in the morning and don't finish until 8 or 9 at night. Sometimes later. Weekends aren't always free. You'd need to be available essentially 24/7. That's like being on call all the time. That's exactly what it is. Marcus's expression was unreadable. I'm not going to pretend this is an easy job, Miss Washington. My last assistant lasted 3 months before having a nervous breakdown. The one before that quit after 6 weeks. I'm demanding, particular, and I don't accept excuses or mediocrity. But I'm also fair. You do your job well, and at the end of the year, you'll walk away with $90,000 of debt paid off, and a recommendation letter that could get you a position anywhere in Chicago. The police officer was walking toward them now, notepad in hand. Jasmine looked at her destroyed Honda, at the Bugatti, at the crowd of people watching her life fall apart in real time. She thought about her cousin Deshaun, who she shared the apartment with. He was a good guy, but he was struggling too, working 2 jobs to make ends meet. If she declared bankruptcy, she'd drag him down with her when she couldn't pay rent. She thought about her mother in Gary, Indiana, who cleaned houses for a living and had sacrificed everything to send Jasmine to community college. How could she tell her mother that she'd destroyed her life by looking at her phone while driving? She thought about the wedding next month, about the job applications she'd been filling out for better positions, about the life she'd been trying to build for herself. All of it would be gone if she went the traditional legal route. "I'll do it," Jasmine heard herself say. "I'll take your offer." Marcus nodded once, pulling out his phone again. "Smart decision. Give me your phone number. I'll have my lawyer draw up the contract and send it to you by tomorrow morning. Read it carefully. If you have questions, you can contact my legal team. Once you sign, you'll start on Monday." "Monday? That's in 4 days." "Did you think you had time to waste?" Marcus typed her number into his phone. "You need to give notice at Target, pack your belongings, and prepare to move into my penthouse by Sunday evening. I'll send a car for you at 6 p.m. The address will be in the contract." He turned to the police officer. "Officer, this was a simple traffic accident. Miss Washington has admitted fault. We're handling the damages privately. I don't wish to press charges or pursue any legal action. I just need you to file a basic accident report for insurance purposes." The officer looked relieved. Probably dealing with a billionaire's crashed Bugatti wasn't high on his list of fun afternoon activities. "Yes, sir, Mr. Chen Williams. I recognize you from the Tribune article last month. I'll keep this simple." As the officer started taking down information, Jasmine stood there in shock. Her entire life having changed in the span of 15 minutes. She'd woken up this morning as a Target employee living paycheck to paycheck. Now she was apparently moving into a penthouse and working as a personal assistant to a billionaire. The crowd was starting to disperse, though several people were still filming. Jasmine heard one woman whisper to her friend, "Can you imagine? Going from Target to working for Marcus Chen Williams? Either she's the luckiest girl in Chicago, or she just signed herself up for the worst year of her life." Marcus, finishing up with the police officer, turned back to her. "My driver will take you home. Your car will be towed. I'll have someone handle that." He gestured toward a black Mercedes S-Class parked down the street. A man in a dark suit was already approaching. "Sir, I can just take the bus," Jasmine started. "You just became my employee, Miss Washington. Employees of Nexus Capital don't take the bus when company cars are available. James will drive you home. He'll be your driver for the next year as well." The driver, James apparently, was a black man in his 50s with kind eyes and a professional demeanor. "Miss Washington," he said, nodding politely. "If you'll come with me, I'll take you wherever you need to go." Jasmine looked back at Marcus one more time. He was already on his phone, probably calling the Bugatti dealership or his insurance company. He didn't look at her again. She'd become just another item on his to-do list. Problem identified, solution implemented, moving on. As James led her to the Mercedes, Jasmine's phone buzzed in her pocket. The group chat with Tanya and her friends. More vacation photos. It seemed like a lifetime ago that she'd been reaching for that phone, distracted by something so trivial. "First time in a Mercedes, miss?" James asked as he opened the back door for her. "First time in any car that cost more than $15,000, Jasmine admitted, sliding into the leather seat. The interior smelled like expensive cologne and new car. There was a tablet built into the back of the front seat, and the floor mats looked like they cost more than her entire wardrobe. "You'll get used to it," James said, starting the engine. It purred to life so quietly, Jasmine almost didn't hear it. "Where am I taking you?" "South Side, Austin neighborhood. I can give you the address." As James navigated through downtown traffic, Jasmine pulled out her phone with shaking hands. She had texts from Tanya, from her cousin Deshawn, from her mom. Normal life stuff. They had no idea that in the last 20 minutes, everything had changed. She opened the message thread with her mom and typed, "Mom, I need to call you later. Something happened. I'm okay, but we need to talk." Her mom responded immediately. "Baby, what's wrong? Are you hurt?" "Not hurt. I'll explain everything, it's complicated. I'll call tonight." Jasmine leaned her head back against the leather seat and closed her eyes. Through the partition, she could see James's eyes in the rearview mirror, watching her with what looked like sympathy. "Can I ask you something?" Jasmine said. "Of course, miss." "You drive for Mr. Chen Williams regularly?" "I've been his driver for 8 years. Is he... what's he like to work for?" James was quiet for a moment, considering his words carefully. Mr. Chen Williams is exacting. He expects excellence in everything. He doesn't tolerate mistakes, tardiness, or excuses. But he's also fair. He pays well, treats his staff with respect, and if you prove yourself valuable, he's loyal. I've seen assistants come and go, some last days, some last months. None have made it a full year yet. "That's encouraging," Jasmine muttered. "But," James continued, "I've also seen Mr. Chen Williams take chances on people that no one else would. He hired me when I had a criminal record and couldn't get work anywhere else. That was 8 years ago. He gave me a chance, and I've worked hard to prove him right. Maybe that's what he's doing with you." They were heading south now, leaving the gleaming towers of downtown behind. The neighborhoods got rougher, the buildings shorter and more worn. This was the Chicago that tourists didn't see, where people like Jasmine lived, working 3 jobs to afford a decent apartment, where every unexpected expense was a potential catastrophe. "Here, make a left on Latrobe," Jasmine directed. "It's the brick building, 3rd one down." James pulled up in front of her apartment building. It was a modest 3-story walk-up, with chipped paint and a security door that hadn't locked properly in 2 years. Sitting on the front steps was her cousin Deshawn, still in his Walmart vest, eating a sandwich. Deshawn's eyes went wide when he saw the Mercedes. He stood up as Jasmine got out, looking between her and the luxury car like he couldn't quite process what he was seeing. "Jazzy, whose car is that? What happened to your Honda?" Jasmine took a deep breath. "Deshawn, I need to tell you something. Let's go inside." James rolled down the window. "Miss Washington, I'll be here Sunday at 6 p.m. sharp. Have your belongings packed and ready. Mr. Chen Williams doesn't appreciate delays." "I'll be ready," Jasmine promised. As the Mercedes pulled away, Deshawn grabbed her arm. "Jasmine, what the hell is going on? You're scaring me." Inside their small apartment, furnished with second-hand couches and a TV Deshawn had won in a raffle, Jasmine told him everything. The accident, the Bugatti, Marcus Chen Williams, the offer. Deshawn listened, his expression cycling through disbelief, shock, anger, and finally, reluctant acceptance. "So you're moving out? Moving in with some billionaire?" Deshawn paced the small living room. "Jazzy, that sounds crazy. You don't know this man. What if he's some kind of predator? What if this is some scheme?" "What choice do I have?" Jasmine countered. "If I don't do this, I'll be in debt for the rest of my life. My credit will be destroyed. I'll never be able to get a decent apartment, buy a car, anything. This way, I work for a year, pay down $90,000 of the debt, and at least have a chance at a normal life afterward." "But working for free? For a whole year?" Deshawn shook his head. That's like indentured servitude or something." "It's not slavery, Dee. I can quit any time. The contract probably has an exit clause. But if I quit, I go right back to owing him hundreds of thousands of dollars." Jasmine sat down on the couch, suddenly exhausted. "I destroyed his $3 million car. This is the best deal I'm going to get. Deshawn sat down next to her, putting his arm around her shoulders. What am I going to do without you? Who's going to tell me I'm being an idiot when I'm being an idiot? You'll figure it out. Jasmine leaned against him. They'd been close since they were kids. Deshawn was more like a brother than a cousin. And I'll still see you. I'll have one day off a week, probably. We can still hang out. If this guy lets you. Deshawn pulled out his phone. What's his name again? Marcus Chen Williams? Let me look him up. For the next hour, they researched. Marcus Chen Williams was all over the internet. Forbes had profiled him last year. The billionaire who started with nothing. He'd grown up in Englewood, one of Chicago's toughest neighborhoods, raised by a single mother who worked as a nurse. He'd gotten a full scholarship to Northwestern, graduated top of his class, and worked at Goldman Sachs before starting his own private equity firm at 28. Now, at 34, he was worth over $1 billion. Nexus Capital had stakes in everything from tech startups to real estate developments. He was known for being brilliant, ruthless in business, and intensely private. The few interviews he'd given focused on his work, never his personal life. Okay, he doesn't look like a serial killer, Deshawn admitted. But Jazzy, these articles say he's demanding as hell. Listen to this. Chen Williams is known for his exacting standards and low tolerance for mediocrity. Former employees describe him as brilliant but difficult, expecting the same level of dedication from his staff that he demonstrates himself. That's corporate speak for, he's going to work you to death. I know. Jasmine looked at the photos of Marcus on her phone. In every picture, he looked composed, confident, powerful. The kind of man who owned a $3 million Bugatti just because he could. The kind of man who probably never made stupid mistakes like checking his phone while driving. But it's only a year. I can survive anything for a year. Her phone buzzed with an email notification. The subject line read, Employment Contract, Personal Assistant Position, Confidential. That was fast, Deshawn muttered, looking over her shoulder. Jasmine opened the attachment. The contract was 32 pages long, dense with legal terminology. She started reading, her eyes widening with each section. The compensation section confirmed what Marcus had said. $90,000 per year, 100% of which would be applied to her debt. 0 take-home pay. The benefits section was more generous than she'd expected. Full room and board in Marcus's penthouse, all meals provided, a monthly stipend of $500 for personal expenses, health insurance fully covered, and the company would indeed make her student loan minimum payments. But then came the demands. She would work a minimum of 70 hours per week, be available for emergency calls 24 hours a day, maintain absolute confidentiality about all business and personal matters, and follow a dress code that required professional attire appropriate for high-level business settings. 70 hours a week? Deshawn read over her shoulder. That's like 12-hour days, 6 days a week, plus being on call all the time. Jazzy, this is insane. Keep reading, Jasmine said, scrolling down. The termination clause was sobering. If Jasmine quit or was fired for cause before the year was completed, she would immediately owe the full amount of damages for the Bugatti, estimated at $450,000, minus whatever portion of the $90,000 had been accrued at the time of termination. If she was fired without cause, Marcus would waive the debt entirely. So basically, Deshawn summarized, if you screw up or can't hack it, you owe him almost $500,000. But if he decides you're not good enough, you're free? That doesn't seem fair. Nothing about this is fair, Jasmine said quietly. But it's what I've got. There were other clauses, non-disclosure agreements about anything she learned while working for Marcus, non-compete clauses preventing her from working for any of Nexus Capital's competitors for 2 years after her employment ended, and a morality clause that basically said she had to maintain a professional reputation at all times. At the bottom was a place for her signature and a deadline. The contract had to be signed and returned by Friday at 5 p.m., or the offer was withdrawn. "What are you going to do?" Deshawn asked. Jasmine looked around their small apartment, at the water stain on the ceiling from the leak in the apartment above, at the second-hand furniture and the empty pizza boxes they'd been meaning to throw out for 3 days, at the stack of bills on the kitchen counter that never seemed to get smaller no matter how hard they both worked. Then she thought about Marcus's penthouse in the Loop, about not worrying about rent or groceries for a year, about the chance, however small, to get out from under the crushing weight of debt that had been strangling her since she graduated community college. "I'm going to sign it," she said. "What choice do I have?" "You could fight it. Get a lawyer."
Maybe there's another way. With what money, Dee? I can't afford a lawyer. And even if I could, I destroyed his car. That's not in dispute. This is the best deal I'm going to get, and we both know it. That night, after Deshawn had gone to bed, Jasmine called her mother. Linda Washington had raised Jasmine alone after Jasmine's father died when she was 3 years old. She'd worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat, had pushed Jasmine to get her education, had sacrificed everything so her daughter could have a better life. "Baby, what's going on?" her mother asked. "Your message scared me." Jasmine explained everything. The accident, the Bugatti, Marcus, the contract. Her mother listened in silence, and Jasmine could picture her in the small house in Gary, probably sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, processing this information. "This man," her mother said finally. "Marcus Chen Williams. You looked him up? He's legitimate?" "He's a billionaire, Mama. It's all over the internet. He's not some scammer." "That's not what I asked. I asked if he's legitimate. Rich people can be predators too, sometimes especially rich people." "I know, Mama, but I don't think—" "The contract is pretty detailed. It's all business. And I'll have my own room, my own space. There's nothing in the contract about anything inappropriate." "Because predators always put their bad intentions in writing," her mother said dryly. "Jasmine, I'm worried. This sounds like you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position." "I'm already in a vulnerable position," Jasmine countered. "I owe this man hundreds of thousands of dollars. If I don't do this, my life is over before it even really starts. My credit will be destroyed. I'll be garnishing wages for decades. Is that really better?" Her mother was quiet for a long moment. "No," she finally admitted. "No, it's not better. But baby, you be careful. You keep your phone charged at all times. You call me every day, and if anything feels wrong, you get out of there. You hear me? I don't care about the debt. Your safety is worth more than any amount of money." "I will, Mama. I promise." "And Jasmine, one more thing." "Yeah?" "Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. You've been stuck at Target for 3 years, going nowhere. Maybe this year will teach you things, open doors you didn't even know existed. Sometimes God works in mysterious ways." Jasmine wanted to believe that. She wanted to believe this wasn't just a disaster, but an opportunity. "I hope you're right." After she hung up, Jasmine sat in the dark living room, staring at the contract on her phone screen. She thought about her life up until this moment. Growing up poor in Gary, her father's death,
watching her mother work herself to exhaustion, getting partial scholarships to community college but still graduating with debt, working at Target, applying for better jobs, getting rejection after rejection. She'd been treading water her whole life, never quite drowning, but never quite swimming either. And now, because of one stupid mistake, she'd been thrown a life preserver. It came with strings attached, a whole year of strings, but it was something. At 11:47 p.m., Jasmine signed the contract electronically and hit send. Her phone buzzed immediately with an auto reply. Contract received and acknowledged. Your start date is Monday, November 20th, 2023. Report to the Nexus Capital offices at 6 a.m. sharp. Dress code, professional business attire. James will pick you up at 5:30 a.m. Do not be late. M. Chen Williams. Jasmine sat back, her heart pounding. She'd just signed away a year of her life. The next 3 days passed in a blur. Jasmine gave her 2 weeks' notice at Target, but her manager, a sympathetic woman named Rosa who'd always liked her, told her to take the opportunity and go. You're 26 years old, working retail for $13.50 an hour.
If some billionaire wants to hire you as his assistant, you grab that chance with both hands. I'll mark you down as having given proper notice. Deshawn helped her pack. She didn't own much. Clothes, books, her laptop, some photos and mementos. It all fit into 2 suitcases and a backpack. Remember, Deshawn said as they folded her clothes Saturday night, you're still you. Don't let some rich dude make you forget who you are or where you came from. I won't, Jasmine promised. But even as she said it, she wondered if that was true. How could she not change? She was about to move into a world so different from her own that it might as well be another planet. Saturday night, she met up with Tanya and their other friends at a bar on the south side. Jasmine told them a sanitized version of the story. She'd gotten a job as a personal assistant to a wealthy businessman. It came with room and board, and she'd be living downtown for a year. "Girl, that's amazing," Tanya squealed, hugging her. "You're finally getting out of Target." "Are you sure about this?" her friend Keisha asked, more skeptical. "Living with your boss? That seems like it could get messy." "I'll have my own room, my own space. It's just convenient since the hours are long." They toasted her new job, but Jasmine felt like a fraud. She hadn't told them about the accident, about the debt, about the fact that she wasn't getting paid. It was too humiliating, too complicated. Better to let them think she'd gotten lucky. Sunday came too quickly. At 5:30 p.m., Jasmine stood outside her apartment building with her 2 suitcases and backpack, watching for the Mercedes. Deshawn stood next to her, hands in his pockets, looking miserable. "It's not like I'm dying, Dee," Jasmine said. "You'll see me again." "I know. It's just weird. We've lived together for 3 years. Who's going to help me figure out what to do with all that leftover rent money? Save it. Or better yet, use it to take a class or something. You're too smart to be working at Walmart forever." The Mercedes pulled up exactly at 6 p.m. James got out and nodded to them both. "Miss Washington, are you ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be." James loaded her suitcases into the trunk while Jasmine hugged Deshawn one last time. "Call me," he whispered, "every day. And if you need me, I'm there. I don't care what time it is. I will. Love you, Dee. Love you too, Jazzy." The drive downtown seemed both too long and too short. Jasmine watched her neighborhood disappear, replaced by increasingly upscale areas until they were in the loop, surrounded by skyscrapers and luxury high-rises.
James pulled into the underground parking garage of a gleaming building on Michigan Avenue. Mr. Chen Williams owns the entire top 3 floors, he explained as they rode the elevator up. The penthouse level is his private residence. The 2 floors below are his home office and staff quarters. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse. Jasmine stepped out and froze. She'd known Marcus was wealthy. She'd seen pictures of expensive homes in magazines. But this was beyond anything she'd imagined. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Chicago, the lake stretching out to the east, the city lights twinkling in every direction. The living room alone was probably 3 times the size of her entire apartment. Modern art hung on the walls, not prints, but originals, the kind she'd seen in museums. The furniture was all clean lines and expensive fabrics, everything white and gray and black, with occasional pops of color from abstract paintings and sculptures. Impressive, isn't it? Marcus emerged from what looked like a home office. He'd changed from his suit into more casual clothes, dark jeans and a black cashmere sweater, but he still looked like he'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. His presence filled the space in a way that had nothing to do with his physical size, and everything to do with the sheer force of his personality. "Yes, sir," Jasmine managed. "It's beautiful." "James, take Miss Washington's bags to the guest suite. Miss Washington, come with me. We need to go over expectations for tomorrow." Jasmine followed him deeper into the penthouse. They passed a state-of-the-art kitchen, a formal dining room with a table that could seat 12, and what looked like a private gym before arriving at another office. This one more relaxed than the one they'd passed initially, with leather chairs and a massive desk overlooking the city. Marcus gestured for her to sit, then settled into his own chair, steepling his fingers as he studied her. "Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., you'll meet me here in my office. We'll go over your daily responsibilities, review my schedule, and I'll introduce you to my expectations. You'll need to be dressed professionally, business attire, nothing casual. Do you have appropriate clothes?" Jasmine thought about her meager wardrobe, mostly Target clearance rack finds. "I have some dress pants and blouses, but nothing appropriate for the settings you'll be accompanying me to," Marcus finished. "I thought as much. There's a clothing allowance included in your contract, $5,000 for professional wardrobe. Tomorrow afternoon, my stylist will take you shopping. Consider it an investment in your ability to represent Nexus Capital appropriately." $5,000 for clothes? Jasmine had never spent more than $50 on a single outfit in her life. "That's very generous, sir." "It's not generosity. It's necessity. When you're standing next to me in meetings with CEOs and investors, you can't look like you just came from Target." He said it matter-of-factly, not cruelly, but it still stung. "Now, let me be clear about something, Miss Washington. You signed a contract that binds you to work for me for 1 year. I take that contract very seriously. I expect you to be punctual, professional, and competent. I expect you to learn quickly and not require me to repeat myself. I expect you to anticipate my needs before I have to ask. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." I also expect absolute confidentiality. Anything you see, hear, or learn in this penthouse or in my offices stays confidential. You don't discuss my business with anyone. You don't post about your job on social media. You don't gossip with the other staff. The NDA you signed isn't just a legal formality. I will enforce it if necessary. The way he said it made Jasmine's stomach clench. "I understand, Mr. Chen Williams." "Good." He stood up, walking to the window. The city lights reflected in the glass, creating a double image of him, real and reflection, both equally imposing. One more thing. The reason my previous assistants didn't last is because they couldn't separate personal feelings from professional requirements. They took offense when I corrected them. They expected me to be gentle with their egos. They thought that working closely with me meant we were friends. He turned to look at her directly. We are not friends, Miss Washington. We are employer and employee. I will not yell at you or belittle you, but I will be direct when you make mistakes. I will expect excellence at all times. If you cannot handle that, it's better to tell me now before we waste each other's time. Jasmine met his gaze, trying to project more confidence than she felt. I can handle it, sir. I need this job. I'll do whatever it takes to succeed. Something flickered in Marcus's expression. Approval, maybe, or just acknowledgement. We'll see. James will show you to your room. Dinner will be served at 8. Don't be late. He dismissed her with a nod, already turning his attention to his phone. Jasmine was clearly no longer his concern for the moment. James led her to the guest suite, which turned out to be a bedroom larger than her entire apartment had been, with an attached bathroom that had both a soaking tub and a separate glass shower. The bed was king-sized, with what looked like 1,000 thread-count sheets. There was a desk, a dresser, a walk-in closet, and another set of floor-to-ceiling windows with views of Lake Michigan. The staff quarters are 1 floor down, James explained as he set her suitcases on the bed. The chef, the housekeeper, and I all have apartments there. You're the only staff member who lives on this floor, in the penthouse proper. That's unusual. Mr. Chen Williams values his privacy. Why did he put me up here then? Jasmine asked. Because you'll need to be available at all hours. It's more convenient. James smiled kindly. Don't look so worried, Miss Washington. The first few weeks will be overwhelming, but you'll find your rhythm. And despite what Mr. Chen Williams said, he's not a tyrant. He's demanding, yes, but he's also fair. Treat him with respect, do your job well, and you'll be fine. After James left, Jasmine unpacked her meager belongings. Her clothes looked pathetic hanging in the massive closet. Her toiletries, drugstore brands, looked out of place in the marble bathroom. She felt like an imposter, a kid playing dress-up in someone else's life. At 8 p.m. exactly, she made her way to the dining room. A woman in her 50s, presumably the housekeeper, was setting the table. Actual china and crystal, not paper plates. You must be Miss Washington, the woman said with a warm smile. I'm Margaret. I manage the household. If you need anything, you let me know. Thank you, Jasmine said, feeling overwhelmed by even this small kindness. Marcus appeared a moment later, still on his phone. He gestured for Jasmine to sit, then finished his call before joining her. A man who must be the chef brought out the food. Perfectly seared salmon with roasted vegetables and some kind of grain salad that Jasmine didn't recognize. They ate in silence at first. Jasmine was acutely aware of Marcus watching her, evaluating her table manners, her posture, probably her breathing. She tried to eat normally, but every bite felt like a test. Tell me about yourself, Miss Washington, Marcus said finally. Not the resume version, the real version. Where did you grow up? What were your plans before you crashed into my Bugatti? Jasmine set down her fork carefully. I grew up in Gary, Indiana. My mom raised me alone after my dad died. We didn't have much. She worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. I got partial scholarships to community college, graduated with an associate's degree in business administration, but I had loans. I've been working at Target for 3 years, applying for better jobs, but... She shrugged. Nobody wants to hire someone with just an associate's degree and retail experience. What did you want to do before all this? The question surprised her. I wanted to work in corporate America, honestly. Maybe human resources or operations. I like organizing things, solving problems, helping things run smoothly. I know it's not glamorous, but I'm good at it. Marcus nodded slowly. Organizational skills are exactly what I need. The assistant role is essentially about keeping my life running smoothly so I can focus on high-level decisions. If you're genuinely good at organizing and problem-solving, you might actually succeed where others have failed. I'll do my best, sir. Your best might not be good enough, Marcus said bluntly. But I'm willing to find out. After dinner, Jasmine retreated to her room, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster of the past 3 days. She FaceTimed Deshawn, showing him the room, the view, the luxury that now surrounded her. Damn, Jazzy, Deshawn breathed. This is insane. You're living like a celebrity. I'm living like an employee, Jasmine corrected. This isn't my life. It's borrowed, temporary. And I have to earn it by working harder than I've ever worked before. Still, 1 year of this? That's not the worst deal. Jasmine looked around the beautiful room, at the view of the city that people paid millions to wake up to every day. Yeah, she said softly. Maybe it's not the worst deal. But as she lay in the unfamiliar bed that night, in this strange new world that smelled of expensive cologne and ambition, Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that she'd traded one kind of trap for another. She was no longer drowning in debt, but she was drowning in expectations, in the weight of proving herself worthy of this bizarre second chance. Tomorrow, her new life would begin. Tomorrow, she would have to prove that she could survive in Marcus Chen Williams's world. She fell asleep with her alarm set for 5 a.m., her professional outfit laid out, and a knot of anxiety in her stomach that wouldn't go away. Monday morning came too soon. Jasmine's alarm blared at 5 a.m., and for a confused moment she didn't remember where she was. Then reality crashed back. The penthouse, Marcus Chen Williams, the contract, the year ahead of her. She showered in the marble bathroom, dressed in her best outfit, a navy blazer she'd bought at Ross for $30, and black dress pants that were slightly too short, and made her way to Marcus's office at exactly 6 a.m. He was already there, of course, dressed in another impeccable suit, reading something on his tablet with a cup of coffee at his elbow. He looked up as she entered, and she saw his gaze flicker over her outfit. He didn't say anything about it, but she saw the slight tightening around his eyes. Her clothes weren't good enough. She already knew it. Good morning, Miss Washington. Sit. For the next 2 hours, Marcus walked her through his schedule, his expectations, the systems she needed to learn. He used a complex calendar application that color-coded everything, had email protocols that were more detailed than anything she'd seen, and expected her to memorize the names and roles of dozens of contacts immediately. This is David Chen, my CFO. This is Alicia Martinez, head of acquisitions. This is Richard Pemberton. He represents our interests in the tech sector. Commit these names to memory. If you confuse them or forget them in a meeting, it reflects poorly on me. Jasmine's head was spinning, but she took notes frantically, asking questions when she didn't understand. Marcus was patient but brisk, clearly not interested in hand-holding. At 8 a.m., they went down to the Nexus Capital offices, 1 floor below the penthouse, and Jasmine was introduced to the team. There were about 20 people total, all dressed immaculately, all clearly accomplished in their fields. They looked at Jasmine with barely concealed curiosity. This is Jasmine Washington, my new personal assistant, Marcus announced in the morning briefing. She'll be handling my schedule, communications, and logistics.
Route appropriate requests through her. Treat her with the same respect you would me. After the meeting, a young woman approached Jasmine in the hallway. She was black, probably late 20s, dressed in a designer suit that probably cost more than Jasmine's entire wardrobe. "Hey, I'm Alicia Martinez. I heard through the grapevine about what happened. The Bugatti thing." Jasmine's face burned. Word travels fast. "Honey, when you crash into Marcus Chen Williams's Bugatti, everyone in Chicago's financial district knows about it by end of day." Alicia's tone wasn't unkind, though. "Look, I know this is overwhelming. Marcus has gone through 5 assistants in 2 years. He's brilliant, but demanding. My advice? Don't take anything personally."
He's not trying to hurt your feelings when he corrects you. He's just focused on excellence. Thanks, Jasmine said, grateful for the kindness. Also, between you and me, Alicia lowered her voice. You're the first assistant he's ever offered this kind of arrangement to. Usually he just fires people when they don't work out. The fact that he's giving you a full year, paying for your living expenses, offering training, that's not his normal MO. I think he sees potential in you. The words gave Jasmine a small spark of hope to cling to as the brutal first weeks began. The job was everything Marcus had warned her it would be, and worse. She worked 12 to 14-hour days, 6 days a week. Her alarm went off at 5 a.m. every morning, and she often didn't get to bed until 11 p.m. Sundays were technically her day off, but Marcus still expected her to monitor his email and respond to urgent matters. She learned to anticipate his needs. Coffee at 6:15 a.m., exactly 175 degrees, black with a single sugar. Lunch at 1 p.m., never the same place twice in a row. Phone calls returned within 15 minutes unless he was in a meeting. Meeting briefs prepared the night before with all relevant information highlighted. She made mistakes, of course, lots of them in those first weeks. "Miss Washington, I asked for the Pemberton file, not the Peterson file. That's the 3rd time this week you've confused similar names. Do better." "The car should have been here at 8:45. It's now 8:50. Your job is to ensure I'm never waiting. Figure out how to communicate more clearly with James." "This coffee is lukewarm. I need it hot. If you're getting it from the break room, you need to pour it immediately before bringing it to me. Time management, Miss Washington." Each correction felt like a small cut, but Jasmine learned. She created systems, set multiple alarms, color-coded everything. Slowly, painfully, she began to get it right more often than she got it wrong. The shopping trip with Marcus's stylist was overwhelming. Simone was a tall, elegant French woman who took one look at Jasmine's Target clothes and sighed dramatically. "We have much work to do, chérie. Mr. Chen Williams, he expects a certain standard." $5,000 bought Jasmine 3 professional suits, 4 blouses, 2 pairs of designer shoes, and appropriate accessories. Everything was tailored perfectly to her body. When she looked at herself in the mirror at the boutique, wearing a charcoal gray theory suit with Stuart Weitzman heels, she barely recognized herself. "Better," Simone said approvingly. "You look like you belong in Mr. Chen Williams' world now." But did she? Jasmine wasn't sure. She felt like an actress playing a role, wearing a costume that didn't quite fit despite the perfect tailoring. 3 weeks into the job, Jasmine accompanied Marcus to her first high-stakes meeting. They were pitching an investment deal to the CEO of a pharmaceutical company, a man named Gerald Hutchinson, who ran a business worth $3 billion. "Remember," Marcus had instructed her in the car on the way there, "you're there to take notes, manage materials, and be invisible. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't interject opinions. Your job is to facilitate, not participate. The meeting was intense. Gerald Hutchinson was a shrewd negotiator, and Marcus matched him point for point. Jasmine watched in fascination as Marcus laid out projections, identified synergies, and structured a deal that would benefit both parties. His mind worked at a speed she could barely follow, and his confidence was absolute. At one point, Hutchinson asked for a specific data point. Marcus glanced at Jasmine, and she immediately pulled up the relevant page in the presentation binder. She'd learned to anticipate these requests, to know the materials so well she could find any information within seconds.
Impressive, Hutchinson commented, looking at Jasmine with interest.
Your new assistant is on the ball. Much better than that nervous kid you had last time. Miss Washington is learning quickly, Marcus agreed, and Jasmine felt a small glow of pride at the compliment. The first real one he'd given her. The deal closed. $200 million in investment capital, structured over 5 years. As they walked out of the building, Marcus was on his phone immediately, calling his legal team to start drafting contracts. In the car, James smiled at her in the rearview mirror. Well done, miss. Your first big meeting, and you didn't drop any of the binders. That's better than the last 3 assistants. One of them dropped a binder? Jasmine asked. Dropped it, pages went everywhere, and she started crying in the middle of the presentation. Mr. Chen Williams finished the meeting himself, closed the deal anyway, and fired her the moment they got back to the car. Jasmine swallowed hard. The margin for error in this job was razor thin. But as the weeks turned into months, something shifted. Jasmine stopped making as many mistakes. She learned Marcus's patterns, his preferences, his unspoken expectations. She knew when he needed coffee without being told. She could read his mood from the set of his shoulders and adjust accordingly. She started solving problems before they became problems. And Marcus noticed. Miss Washington, the briefing you prepared for the Singapore meeting was excellent. Thorough, well-organized, with the exact level of detail I needed. Good work. Thank you, sir. Also, I've noticed you've been staying late to study our investment portfolio. That shows initiative. Keep it up. The compliments were rare, but they kept Jasmine going through the grueling days. She was learning more than she'd ever learned in community college. She was seeing how real business worked at the highest levels. She was building a skill set that no classroom could teach.
But it came at a cost.
She barely saw Deshawn anymore. Just a quick Sunday brunch once or twice a month. Her friendships with Tanya and the others faded. Not from any conscious choice, but from simple lack of time and energy. Her entire life became contained within the walls of Marcus's penthouse and offices. She was eating better than she ever had. The chef prepared healthy, delicious meals, but she was also exhausted constantly. She fell asleep reading business journals most nights. Her dreams were filled with meeting schedules and contract negotiations. 3 months in, Jasmine was reviewing Marcus's schedule for the next week when she noticed something odd. There was a lunch meeting on Thursday with Kay Morrison at Gibson's Steakhouse, but there were no notes about what the meeting was for, and she'd never heard Marcus mention Morrison before. Sir, she asked, standing in his office doorway. I'm preparing briefing materials for next week. Can you tell me more about the Thursday lunch with Kay Morrison? I don't have any background information. Marcus looked up from his computer, and something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or discomfort. That's a personal meeting. You don't need to prepare materials. Oh, should I still keep it on the calendar? Yes, but block out 2 hours instead of 1, and make sure we're not disturbed. Jasmine nodded and left, but curiosity gnawed at her.
A personal meeting? Marcus didn't have personal meetings. His entire life seemed to be work. She'd never seen him take a call that wasn't business-related, never seen him make plans with friends or family. Thursday came, and Jasmine made the reservation at Gibson's, arranged the car, and made sure Marcus left on time. He seemed more tense than usual, adjusting his tie repeatedly in the elevator, checking his reflection. "Are you all right, sir?" she asked. "Fine," he said shortly. Then, after a pause, "Miss Washington, I need you to understand something."
My personal life is exactly that. Personal. You're my assistant, not my confidant. The lines between professional and personal remain clear. Understood? Of course, sir, Jasmine said, stung by the coldness of his tone. But later that day, when Marcus returned from the lunch, something was different. He seemed distracted, troubled in a way she'd never seen. He went straight to his office and closed the door, something he rarely did. She heard him on the phone, his voice raised slightly, speaking in Mandarin. She couldn't understand the words, but the tone was clearly argument. When he emerged an hour later, his expression was carefully neutral again. But Jasmine noticed the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. "Reschedule tomorrow's morning meeting," he said curtly. "Something's come up." It was the first time in 3 months that he'd changed his schedule without weeks of advance notice. Jasmine didn't pry. It wasn't her place. But she couldn't help wondering, who was Kay Morrison? And why had lunch with them unsettled Marcus Chen Williams so completely? The answer came 2 weeks later, when Jasmine was working late in the penthouse office, organizing files. Marcus had gone to the gym, one of his few non-work activities. Jasmine heard the elevator ding and looked up, expecting to see Marcus returning. Instead, a woman stepped out. She was stunning, tall, elegant, with long black hair and features that suggested East Asian heritage. She wore a designer dress and carried herself with the confidence of someone used to wealth. She looked surprised to see Jasmine. "Oh, you must be the new assistant. Jasmine, right?" "Yes, ma'am. Can I help you?" "I'm Catherine Morrison, Marcus's ex-wife. Is he here?" Jasmine's mind reeled. Ex-wife? Marcus had been married? "He's at the gym. He should be back in about 20 minutes. Catherine sighed, walking into the living room and settling on the couch like she owned the place, which, Jasmine supposed, she once had. "I'll wait. Do you mind getting me some water?" "Of course." As Jasmine poured sparkling water into a crystal glass, Catherine studied her. "How long have you been working for Marcus?" "Almost 4 months now." "And he hasn't scared you off yet? That's impressive. He went through assistants like tissues when we were married. How are you different?" Jasmine handed her the water, unsure how to answer. "I need this job. I don't have the luxury of quitting." Catherine's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. "Interesting. There's a story there, isn't there?" She took a sip of water. "Let me guess. You needed money. Marcus offered you a deal, and now you're locked in for a year." "Something like that," Jasmine admitted cautiously. Classic Marcus. He sees potential in people, but he also likes to control them. It's how he operates in business. Find the leverage, use it to your advantage. She didn't sound bitter exactly, just matter of fact. "How much does he have on you, if you don't mind my asking?" Jasmine hesitated, but something about Catherine's directness made her answer honestly. "I crashed into his Bugatti. I'm working off the debt." Catherine burst out laughing, genuine, surprised laughter. "Oh my God! The Bugatti? The blue Chiron? That was you? Yeah, Jasmine said, her face burning. Not my finest moment. Honey, that's amazing. Most people who cross Marcus end up in court. The fact that he offered you this deal instead? He definitely sees something in you. Catherine's expression grew more serious. Be careful, though. Marcus is brilliant, and he can be generous, but he's also a control freak. He likes to have power over people. Make sure you maintain some independence, even while you're working for him. Before Jasmine could respond, the elevator opened, and Marcus stepped out, still in his gym clothes, a towel around his neck. He froze when he saw Catherine. What are you doing here, Kate? Nice to see you too, Marcus. We need to talk privately. Marcus's jaw clenched. He looked at Jasmine. Miss Washington, you're done for the night. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Jasmine gathered her things quickly, but not before hearing Catherine say, I'm not signing the papers, Marcus. Not until we talk about the California property. As the elevator doors closed, Jasmine saw Marcus run his hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she'd never seen from him before. The next morning, Marcus was back to his usual controlled self, but Jasmine noticed small things. He was shorter with people on phone calls. He didn't touch his breakfast, and he snapped at her twice over minor issues. Sir, is everything all right? She finally asked, after he'd criticized the way she'd formatted a document for the third time. Marcus looked at her sharply. My personal issues are not your concern. I understand, sir. If there's anything I can do to help make your day easier, please let me know. Something in his expression softened, just slightly. The divorce should have been finalized 6 months ago. Catherine is complicating things. It's frustrating, but it's not your problem to solve. Mausik, how long were you married? Jasmine asked, then immediately regretted it. I'm sorry, that's too personal. I shouldn't have. 5 years, Marcus said, surprising her by answering. We met at Northwestern, got married young, grew apart. She wanted a husband who came home at 6 p.m. and took vacations to wine country. I wanted to build an empire. Neither of us was wrong, but we weren't compatible. It was the most personal information Marcus had ever shared with her. Jasmine felt like she'd glimpsed behind a curtain she wasn't supposed to see. For what it's worth, sir, I think you're doing amazing work here. Some people just can't understand that level of ambition. Marcus studied her for a long moment. Thank you, Miss Washington. That's appreciated. The moment passed, and they returned to work. But something had shifted between them. A wall had come down, just slightly. As winter deepened and Jasmine passed the 6-month mark of her employment, she realized she'd stopped thinking about the job as temporary. She'd stopped counting down days until her year was up. She'd actually started to enjoy the work. The challenge of it, the learning, the feeling of being part of something important. She was good at this, really good. Marcus relied on her now in ways he hadn't at the beginning. She managed his entire life, anticipated problems, solved issues before they escalated. She'd become indispensable. And slowly, imperceptibly, their relationship had shifted from pure employer-employee to something more complex. Not romantic. That line was never even close to being crossed. But there was respect, even friendship developing. Marcus asked her opinion on things now. Small things at first. Miss Washington, which restaurant do you think would be better for the meeting with the Japanese investors? Then bigger things. I'm considering acquiring this tech startup. Read through the prospectus and tell me what you think. He remembered details about her life. How's your cousin Deshaun doing? You said he was thinking about taking classes. Your mother's birthday is next week. Take the afternoon off on Thursday to visit her. And Jasmine found herself genuinely caring about Marcus's well-being. Not just as an employee worried about her boss's mood, but as someone who saw past the billionaire facade to the driven, lonely man underneath. One evening, 7 months into her employment, Jasmine was working late when Marcus emerged from his office looking exhausted. It was 10 p.m., and they'd been working since 6 a.m. with barely a break. "That's enough for tonight," he said. "We're both running on fumes. Just let me finish this email to the London office. It can wait until morning."
Miss Washington, you've been here 16 hours. Go to bed.
Jasmine saved her work and stood up, stretching. Her back ached from sitting too long. "Can I ask you something, sir?" "What?" "Do you ever stop working? Like, truly stop? Take a vacation, go to a movie, just exist without thinking about business?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "No," he finally said. "I don't. This work is my life. It's what I'm good at. It's what matters." "That sounds lonely." "It is," he admitted, and there was something raw in his voice. "But it's the price of building something significant. Most people aren't willing to pay that price. That's why most people don't build empires." Jasmine thought about her own life over the past 7 months. She'd barely seen her friends, hadn't dated, hadn't done anything except work. And yet, despite the exhaustion, despite the sacrifices, she felt more fulfilled than she ever had stocking shelves at Target. "I think I understand," she said softly. "The work matters more than the comfort." Marcus looked at her with something like surprise in his eyes. "Yes, exactly that." They stood there for a moment, two people who'd been thrown together by accident and circumstance, who'd somehow found common ground in their shared obsession with excellence and achievement. "Get some rest, Miss Washington," Marcus said finally. "Tomorrow's going to be brutal. We have the board meeting at 8. "Good night, sir." As Jasmine walked to her room, she realized she was smiling. Despite everything, the debt, the long hours, the constant pressure, she was happy. She was learning, growing, becoming someone new, someone capable and confident and competent. But she also knew, with a clarity that was both exciting and terrifying, that the person she'd been when she crashed into that Bugatti was gone forever. The question was, who was she becoming? The answer would reveal itself sooner than she expected, in ways she never could have anticipated. The revelation came on a Tuesday morning in late spring, 9 months into Jasmine's contract. She arrived at Marcus's office at the usual time to find him already on a conference call. But there was something different about his demeanor. His shoulders were tight with tension, and when he met her eyes, there was a look she'd never seen before. Something close to regret. He wrapped up the call quickly. "Miss Washington, sit down. We need to talk." Jasmine's stomach dropped. Those words were never good. "Is something wrong?" Marcus ran his hand through his hair, that gesture of frustration she'd only seen a handful of times. "The Bugatti repairs were completed last week. Final cost came in at $485,000. That's what you officially owe me." Jasmine's mouth went dry. She'd tried not to think about the actual number too much, focusing instead on just getting through each day. "Okay, so after the $90,000 from my year of work, I'll still owe almost $400,000. "Yes, which brings us to what we need to discuss." Marcus pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk to her. "These are payment plans my lawyers have drawn up. We can structure this as a 10-year loan at low interest, or a 15-year plan with even lower monthly payments. Either way, it's manageable. You won't be buried by it." Jasmine opened the folder, scanning the numbers. Even the 15-year plan would mean paying nearly $3,000 a month for the next 15 years. She'd be 41 years old before she was free of this debt. There's something else, Marcus continued, and now he wouldn't quite meet her eyes. The insurance investigation came back last week. When they reviewed the police report and the surveillance footage from the Waldorf, they determined that while you were distracted, the Bugatti was parked illegally. I was over the time limit for that loading zone by 14 minutes. Jasmine looked up sharply.
What does that mean? It means that legally, liability is shared. My insurance company is arguing that my illegal parking contributed to the accident. They're saying you would only be liable for 50% of the damages.
50%? Jasmine's voice came out as a whisper. So I'd only owe $242,500, minus the $90,000 you've already earned. $152,500. Marcus finally met her eyes. A third of what you thought you owed. Jasmine stared at him, her mind reeling. When did you find this out? About the shared liability? The silence stretched between them, heavy with implication. 3 months ago, Marcus finally said. The initial investigation report came back 3 months ago. The words hit Jasmine like a physical blow. 3 months. For 3 months, Marcus had known that she didn't owe as much as she thought, and he'd said nothing. For 3 months, she'd been working herself to exhaustion, sacrificing everything, believing she was under a crushing debt, and he'd known the truth. Why didn't you tell me? Her voice shook with anger she couldn't quite control. Why did you let me believe I owed almost $500,000 when you knew it was less than half that? Marcus's expression was carefully neutral, but she could see the guilt there, hiding behind his professional mask. Because you were finally performing at the level I needed. Because the past 3 months, you've been the best assistant I've ever had. Because I knew that if you knew the debt was lower, you might leave at the end of your year, and I didn't want to lose you. So you lied to me. I didn't lie. I just delayed telling you the truth. That's the same thing. Jasmine stood up, too angry to sit still. You used my fear and guilt to keep me working for you. You manipulated me. After everything. After I've given you 9 months of my life. After I've worked 16-hour days and given up my entire life to this job. You were manipulating me the whole time. That's not fair. I gave you an opportunity. I could have sued you, taken you to court, destroyed your credit. Instead, I gave you a job, training, a place to live. And you made sure I was too terrified to ever question it. Jasmine's hands were shaking. You knew I thought I owed almost $500,000. You knew that number was crushing me. And you said nothing because it was convenient for you. Marcus stood up too, his voice rising to match hers. What did you want me to do? Tell you at the 3-month mark when you were barely competent? You would have left, gone back to stocking shelves at Target and learned nothing. I gave you an opportunity to become someone better. You gave yourself an assistant you could control. The words hung in the air between them. Marcus's face went cold, that professional mask slamming back into place. You're right. I should have told you sooner. That was wrong of me. I apologize. But it was too late. The apology felt hollow, corporate. Jasmine grabbed the folder off his desk. I'll look at these payment plans. Thank you for finally being honest with me. Is there anything else, or can I get back to work? Miss Washington, is there anything else, sir? Marcus's jaw tightened. No, that's all. Jasmine walked out of his office, her entire body vibrating with anger and hurt. For 9 months, she'd been giving everything to this job, to him. She'd started to think they had respect for each other, maybe even friendship. But he'd been lying to her, or at least concealing the truth the entire time. Catherine's words echoed in her memory. Marcus is brilliant, and he can be generous, but he's also a control freak. He likes to have power over people. How had she missed it? How had she let herself believe that Marcus Chen Williams, billionaire and master manipulator in business, would be any different with her? The rest of the day was agony. Jasmine performed her duties mechanically, but the ease and intuition that had developed between her and Marcus was gone. Everything felt stilted, formal, wrong. That evening, instead of working late as she normally would, Jasmine went to her room at exactly 6 p.m. She called Deshawn. "He did what?" Deshawn's voice exploded through the phone. "Jazzy, that's messed up. You need to quit. Like, right now. Get out of there." "If I quit, I still owe the money. The contract is clear about that. So finish your year and then never look back. You only have 3 more months anyway." Jasmine lay back on her bed, staring at the ceiling. "The problem is, I don't want to leave. Not really. I love this job. I love the work, the learning, the challenge. I'm good at it, and despite what Marcus did, I was happy here." Was. Past tense. Yeah, was. After she hung up, Jasmine stared at the payment plan documents. With the reduced debt, the 10-year plan would be manageable, about $1,600 a month. Still a lot, but doable if she got a good job after this, which she should be able to do. 9 months as personal assistant to Marcus Chen Williams, with his letter of recommendation, would open doors she'd never dreamed of. But the betrayal still burned. How could she trust him now? How could she work for someone who'd manipulated her so thoroughly? 3 days passed in tense silence. Jasmine did her job perfectly. Marcus could find no fault in her work, but the warmth that had developed between them was gone. They were back to being pure employer and employee, nothing more. On Friday evening, as Jasmine was preparing to leave for the night, Marcus appeared in her doorway.
Miss Washington, do you have a moment?
"Of course, sir." He walked into her small office. He'd given her an actual office 3 months ago, a space of her own, and closed the door. "This isn't working." Jasmine's heart sank. "Are you firing me?" "No, God no, that's not." Marcus rubbed his face, and for the first time since she'd known him, he looked genuinely uncertain. "I'm trying to apologize. Really apologize, not just say the words because they're expected." "I'm listening." "What I did was wrong. I should have told you about the insurance investigation results as soon as I received them. I told myself I was protecting your focus, keeping you from being distracted by reduced pressure. But the truth is exactly what you said. I liked having you under contract. I liked knowing you couldn't leave. And that was selfish and manipulative, and I'm sorry." He paused, seeming to struggle with his next words. "When you showed up in your Target uniform 9 months ago, I saw someone with potential being wasted. I convinced myself that I was doing you a favor, giving you an opportunity you wouldn't have otherwise had. And that's partially true. But I also used your desperation for my own benefit, and I kept using it even after I knew better. That's not the kind of person I want to be." Jasmine studied him carefully. "What changed? Why are you telling me all this now?" "Because Alicia confronted me yesterday. She said everyone in the office can feel the tension, and she asked me what I'd done to screw up the best professional relationship I'd had in years. When I told her, she called me a controlling asshole and said if I didn't fix it, I deserved to lose you. A slight smile flickered across his face. She's very direct. She's right, Jasmine said quietly. About the controlling part, at least. I know, and I want to make it right, if that's possible. I'm offering you a choice, Miss Washington. You can finish out your contract, 3 more months, and we'll stick to the payment plan for the reduced debt. Or you can leave now. I'll waive the entire remaining debt, and you'll walk away with 9 months of assistant experience and a glowing letter of recommendation. Jasmine's breath caught. You'd waive the debt? All of it? Yes. Consider it my penance for manipulation. You deserve to have agency over your own life, and I took that from you. I'm giving it back. For a long moment, Jasmine didn't speak. This was what she dreamed of when she first signed the contract. Freedom from the crushing debt, the ability to walk away and start fresh. No more 16-hour days, no more being at someone's beck and call, no more sacrificing her entire life for someone else's convenience. But as she sat there, imagining walking away, she realized something surprising. She didn't want to leave. Can I ask you something honestly, sir? Of course. If I stay the full year and complete my contract, what happens then? Do I just move out, take my payment plan, and never see you again? Marcus hesitated. That depends. What do you want to happen? Jasmine took a deep breath. I want a real job. Not as your personal assistant. I think we both know that dynamic is too complicated now. But maybe in the company. Alicia's mentioned that the operations department needs someone to manage project coordination. Or I could work in HR. I want to build a career here at Nexus Capital, if you'd be willing to actually hire me as a real employee. With a real salary, Marcus said, and there was relief in his voice. And benefits, and professional boundaries, and normal working hours. Yes, all of that. But I want to finish my year first. I want to complete what I started. And I want to do it knowing that it's my choice, not because I'm trapped. Even after what I did? You were wrong, Jasmine said firmly. You manipulated me, and that wasn't okay. But you also gave me an opportunity that changed my life. I came here thinking I was just paying off a debt. Instead, I learned more in 9 months than I learned in 3 years at Target and 2 years at community college combined. I became someone I never thought I could be. So yes, you were wrong. But I'm also grateful. Both things can be true. Marcus nodded slowly. Then let's make a new agreement. You finish your year, we settle the reduced debt on reasonable terms, and then I offer you a position in operations. Starting salary, $80,000 a year, full benefits, reasonable hours. No more living together. You get your own apartment, your own life. We maintain professional boundaries. How does that sound? Like something I can actually build a future on. Jasmine extended her hand. Deal. They shook on it, and something eased in both of them. The betrayal was still there. Jasmine wouldn't forget it. But they could move forward. They could rebuild on a foundation of honesty. Over the final 3 months of Jasmine's contract, their relationship shifted once again. Marcus was more careful now, more conscious of the power dynamic between them. He asked her opinion more often, deferred to her judgment on scheduling and logistics, treated her less like an assistant and more like a colleague. And Jasmine, freed from the weight of believing she owed nearly $500,000, worked with a new lightness. She still put in long hours, still pushed herself to excel. But now it was because she wanted to, not because she was afraid. She started using her Sundays for herself again, She reconnected with Deshawn, with Tanya and her other friends. She even went on a few dates, though nothing serious developed. She was too focused on her own growth to worry about romance. The day her contract ended fell on a Friday in August. Jasmine woke up in her penthouse bedroom for the last time, packed her belongings, considerably more now than the 2 suitcases she'd arrived with, and met Marcus in his office one final time as his assistant. "Well, Miss Washington," he said, standing as she entered. "We made it. Full year. You're the first assistant to complete a full contract with me." "Does that mean I get a trophy?" Jasmine joked. "Better. Your official job offer for the operations coordinator position." He slid a folder across the desk. They always seemed to be exchanging folders, Jasmine thought. $80,000 a year as we discussed, full benefits, and a signing bonus of $15,000 to help you get settled in your own apartment. Jasmine opened the folder, scanning the offer letter. Everything was exactly as Marcus had promised. She looked up at him and was surprised to see something like pride in his expression. "You've exceeded every expectation, Jasmine. You came here thinking you were just paying off a debt, but you've proved yourself to be one of the most capable people I've worked with. Whatever happens next, I want you to know that." "Thank you, Marcus." It was the first time she'd called him by his first name without the title. It felt right. They weren't boss and assistant anymore. They were colleagues. Maybe, eventually, they could even be friends. "One more thing." Marcus pulled out another envelope. "Your debt has been paid in full. The $90,000 from your year of work, and I'm waiving the remainder. You don't owe me anything, Jasmine. You've more than earned your freedom." Jasmine stared at the debt release document, her eyes filling with tears despite herself. "Why would you do that? You don't have to." "Yes, I do. You were right when you said I manipulated you. This is my way of making that right. You start your new position with a clean slate, no debt, no obligations, except the job itself." "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll stay with Nexus Capital. Build your career here. Let me watch you become everything I saw you could be that day on Michigan Avenue, when you crashed into my Bugatti, looking terrified in your Target uniform." Jasmine laughed through her tears. "When you put it that way, I've come pretty far, haven't I?" "Further than you know." As Jasmine walked out of the penthouse for the last time, her belongings packed and ready for her new apartment in Wicker Park, she paused at the elevator. She looked back at the space that had been her home for a year, at the city view that had become so familiar, at Marcus standing in the doorway to his office, watching her leave. "Thank you," she called across the space. "For everything, even the hard parts." Marcus nodded. "Thank you for crashing into my Bugatti. Best accident I ever had." The elevator doors closed, and Jasmine descended from the penthouse into her new life. 6 months later, Jasmine had her own apartment. Nothing as fancy as Marcus's penthouse, but a clean, bright one-bedroom in Wicker Park that was all hers. She'd furnished it gradually, mixing IKEA pieces with a few splurges on items she'd always wanted but never could afford. Her job in operations was everything she'd hoped for. She coordinated projects across departments, managed timelines and budgets, and solved problems that arose. She worked 45 to 50 hours a week, demanding but manageable. She had weekends. She had a life outside of work. She saw Marcus regularly in the office, but their interactions were professional, bounded by proper workplace dynamics. He'd promoted Alicia to COO, and she'd become something of a mentor to Jasmine, teaching her the nuances of corporate culture and introducing her to important contacts. Jasmine was dating occasionally, had reconnected fully with her friends, and saw her mother regularly. Her student loans were almost paid off with the help of her new salary and the signing bonus Marcus had given her. One evening, Jasmine was working late at the office when Marcus stopped by her desk. "Still here, Jasmine. It's past 7. Just finishing up the quarterly projections for the tech portfolio. I wanted to get them to you before tomorrow's meeting." "You don't need to stay late for that. Tomorrow morning would be fine." "I know, but I want to." Jasmine saved her work and looked up at him. "How's Catherine? I heard the divorce was finally finalized." "Last month. We're on better terms now. Turns out, when you stop fighting over property and just talk like adults, it's easier to remember why you liked each other in the first place." Marcus leaned against her desk. "She asked about you, actually. Wanted to know if you survived your first year." "Barely," Jasmine joked. "But I'm glad I did." "Me too." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, "I'm having some people over Sunday night. Casual dinner party. Alicia will be there, a few others from the company. You should come. Bring your cousin if you want. I'd like to meet him properly." It was the first time Marcus had invited her to something social, something that wasn't work-related. Jasmine felt something shift, the final wall between them coming down. "I'd like that. We'll be there." "Good." Marcus straightened up. "Now go home, Jasmine. Quarterly reports can wait until morning. That's an order from your boss." "Yes, sir," Jasmine said with mock seriousness, and they both smiled. As Marcus walked away, Jasmine thought about the journey that had brought her here. From the terrifying moment of the crash to the brutal first months of her contract. From the betrayal of discovering Marcus's manipulation to the grace of his apology and restitution. From debt and desperation to freedom and opportunity. She'd crashed into a $3 million Bugatti and thought her life was over. Instead, it had been the beginning of everything. Deshaun was right when he'd said that first night. Sometimes the worst disasters turn into the best opportunities. You just have to be brave enough to see them through. Jasmine packed up her laptop, grabbed her coat, and headed for the elevator. As she rode down, she pulled out her phone and texted Deshaun. "Dinner party, Sunday at Marcus's. You're coming with me. It's time you met the man who changed my life. For better and worse." His response came immediately. "The Bugatti billionaire? Hell yes. Do I need to rent a suit?" Jasmine laughed. "Nope. He said casual. Just be yourself." "That's what I'm afraid of." As Jasmine walked out of the building into the Chicago evening, the city lights reflecting off the lake in the distance, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Contentment. Not happiness exactly. That was too simple for the complexity of what she'd been through. But satisfaction. Pride in who she'd become. Hope for who she'd continue to be. She'd started as a girl making $13.50 an hour, living paycheck to paycheck, with no prospects and crushing debt. Now she was a professional, earning $80,000 a year, with skills and connections that opened doors, with a future that stretched ahead of her full of possibilities. And it had all started with one distracted glance at her phone and the sickening crunch of her Honda hitting a Bugatti. Life was strange that way. Sometimes your worst mistakes led to your greatest transformations. Sometimes the people who seemed like villains turned out to be complicated humans doing their best. Sometimes the traps you fell into turned out to be doors to better places. Jasmine hailed a cab. She could afford cabs now, didn't have to take the bus, and gave the driver her address. As they drove through the city, past the South Side neighborhoods where she'd grown up, and the downtown towers where she now worked, she thought about the girl she'd been a year and a half ago. That girl would never have believed where she'd end up. That girl would never have thought she could survive working for someone like Marcus Chen Williams, let alone thrive. But she had survived. More than that, she'd excelled. She'd taken the worst day of her life and turned it into an opportunity. She'd faced her fears, worked harder than she ever had, learned to advocate for herself, and come out the other side stronger. The debt was gone. The fear was gone. What remained was experience, confidence, and a future she'd built through sheer determination. Not bad for a girl who crashed a Bugatti. As the cab pulled up to her apartment, Jasmine saw Mrs. Chen from 3B watering her window boxes and Mr. Rodriguez from across the hall walking his dog. Normal people, living normal lives in this normal neighborhood. She was one of them now. No longer living in a penthouse that wasn't hers, no longer working off a debt, no longer trapped in someone else's world. She was free. And she'd earned that freedom through every 16-hour day, every mistake corrected, every skill learned, every moment she'd chosen to keep going when quitting would have been easier. Jasmine paid the cab driver, grabbed her laptop bag, and headed inside. Tomorrow she'd go to work and continue building her career. Sunday, she'd introduce Deshawn to Marcus and her new work friends, bridging her old life and her new one. Next month, she'd get her final student loan payment confirmation, and she'd finally be completely debt-free. But tonight, she'd make herself dinner in her own kitchen, watch whatever she wanted on TV, and go to bed at a reasonable hour because she could. It was a simple pleasure, but after the year she'd had, simple pleasures felt like luxury. She'd crashed a $3 million car and thought it was the end of the world. It turned out to be the beginning of her real life. And that, Jasmine thought as she unlocked her apartment door and stepped inside, was the best plot twist of all.